Hey, and welcome to our April user group meeting. Topic for today is using PowerShell AI from zero to hero. Something about me, I am Konstantin. Can contact me on Twitter or X, what it's called today, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I work in PowerShell nearly every day, do some scripting, and I'm the automation guy in my company. If you want to submit a session, again, the CFPs are open on Sessionize, so you can submit a session. I will contact you, and we can work something out that you can speak at my user group. I'm always open for submissions. If you want to hear me speak, I will be speaking at PSConf.eu in Antwerp this year. I have two 45 minutes talks about dev environment for Universal with dev containers, and also automated lab, SQL automation with automated lab, creating a what is it called, always on availability group in 3 different ways. So if you want to come, you can go to PSConf.eu and order your ticket. So session will be recorded, some housekeeping stuff. Session will be recorded. It will be available on YouTube, I hope, next week. You can please mute your microphone that we don't have any background noises that don't distract the recording. I will monitor the chat, and I think we can unmute and ask questions during the presentation. Okay, good. So then today's speaker is again Doug Finke. Thank you for attending again, or for speaking again. And yeah, stage is yours.
Awesome.
Please introduce yourself, and then you can start with the presentation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me back.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun last time. We talked about fun times with Import Excel.
right.
Actually, some people actually reached out to me and they said, they've been using the Import Excel module for a while, and then they saw the link to the presentation, and they were glad to see a deeper dive on what you can do with it. So that was very cool.
Oh, thank you very much.
So yeah, today we're going to talk about a little known topic called ChatGPT and AI. It hasn't gotten too much notoriety yet. I'm only kidding. I guess I'm assuming everybody's heard about it, but maybe not. And I'm going to talk about how PowerShell scripting transformed and the impact of ChatGPT and AI. I'm going to go through a few slides, and then we'll do a demo heavy, which is what I like to do. So feel free to interrupt me anytime. If you ask a question, probably other folks on the line have the same question. And if I'm going to cover it, I will say I'll be showing what you're asking about in an upcoming demo. Or if I am not going to cover it, if I don't think it's too far afield, I'll answer the question. And if not, we can wait to the end and do a deeper discussion on it. So if you want to catch up with me, I'm on the X platform. I don't know what Twitter is, but I'm on the X platform. Sorry, just kidding. And so I see the video is maybe frozen. I don't know if it's my side or your side, Konstantin.
I'm seeing your video. I'm seeing that your mouse is moving. So yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's just my side.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, good. So there you can catch up with me if you want to find. So I'll be using the PowerShell AI Assistant module that I wrote, and we'll talk more about that. So if you want to grab it up on the GitHub, you can go on GitHub and check out the code, or you can do an install-module PowerShell AI Assistant, and you can follow along and play along as I go. You'll also need a key from OpenAI, which I won't discuss on how to get. It's not that difficult. Yes, you need a credit card. I think they give you a few free credits to begin with, which would be enough to play along with what I'm going to do today. It's not expensive at all, even what you're trying to do. Catch up with me on my YouTube channel. I put videos up there all the time about AI, about PowerShell, my meetups, my live streams that I do. and I have a blog there as well. And just as another note, I don't know if I talked about this last month. So Manning Publishing contacted me last year. They saw what I was doing with PowerShell and AI. They asked me if I would write a book. We talked for a month or so, and I said, there's too much stuff that's changing. And this was last February, March. I said, too many things are changing. I'm not comfortable writing a book. And they contacted me about a month ago, and they said, hey, it's a year later. How about now? I said, I think they've settled down. The fundamentals are there. Let's do a book. And then I asked them, I can't see the chat, but how many people here know the name Bruce Payette? Type of one in the chat if you know Bruce Payette.
Or raise a hand or so.
Or raise your hand.
Yeah.
How come? I can't see the chat. Where's my chat?
So one person.
Hey, oh, there we go.
The
Peter knows him. Well, so Bruce Payette basically is the person who designed the PowerShell language.
Yeah.
And he wrote the book PowerShell in Action. And that book actually inspired me to write my first book. And anyway, so he agreed to co-author the book with me. I signed the contract yesterday to go forward with Manning. They liked the table of contents we built. We're going to write a book about PowerShell and AI. It's going to include the stuff around the PowerShell Assistant module. And we're going to go into a lot cooler things and so on. So,
just short interruption. Marco asks if you could share your slides.
These slides?
Yeah.
Yep. I'll give you a link to where the slides are, and then you can put them under the YouTube.
Yeah.
And we'll take care of that.
I will put it in the description then. Yeah.
Awesome.
Right. Yeah.
No problem. All right. Yeah, I'm surprised. I think last time I saw the comment straight away, but all right, next time. So let's kick this off. So when I talk about AI, I talk about embracing the power. There's a lot of stuff there's people who are scared about AI. They think of the Terminator, they think of Skynet, robots gonna come down and take out the human race. It's potentially a possibility, depending on how. I don't think it's going to happen the way we think it is. I don't think it's going to be using weapons. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that. There's also the deniers that think they go up and they try a few things in AI and they say, I asked these basic questions and it doesn't give me the answer I want. This thing's no good. It's a bunch of junk. I don't agree with either opinion. I think this is an amazing tool to put in your tool belt. And that's what I'm going to focus on here. Those other conversations are great. Grab a beer, have some chats, lots of philosophy. I have my opinions about the philosophy, but we're going to take a look at how to work the tool. So AI is an emerging skill, right? How to use it. In fact, I use the word AI here. I've since updated it to Gen AI. I prefer to use generative AI or Gen AI because AI includes things like machine learning and those types of things. This is not about machine learning. We're way past that. And yes, you can still do machine learning and all kinds of stuff, but this is not what we're going to discuss here today. And the fundamental thing I like to point out is that this little graphic here, AI will not replace you. A person using AI will. AI still has a lot to go. We're going to see some amazing things, I think, this year in 2024, even more amazing things coming in 25 from all the large vendors. But if you know how to wield AI, you can do a lot of really cool things, and people who don't know how to do it, I think those are going to be the people on the short list. So when you think about AI, you can imagine it as a highly capable assistant or a smart intern. Okay, it's always on, it's efficient, and it's pretty much accurate. Yes, it hallucinates. Yes, it does. It will confidently tell you the wrong thing. Although we call it hallucinating, if we're talking to humans, humans do the same thing, right? If you ask a question, somebody thinks, I understand your question. I'll give you an answer. If I don't, sometimes I'll hedge my bet and tell you something that may or may not be true. We call that bullshitting with humans. In AI, we call it hallucinations. It can generate scripts, offer suggestions, do problem solving, and ChatGPT learns quickly. They're constantly retraining it, doing all other kinds of techniques to improve its output. And that's why we've gone from ChatGPT in 2022 to where we are today in 2024. And we might be seeing ChatGPT 5. I don't know if they're going to name it that, but that's I think right around the corner. It makes humans scalable. We can handle large volumes of work. The integration benefits, it increases scripting efficiency and scalability, and basically it can free up human talent instead of doing the same. Like why do we use PowerShell? Because we can automate things that used to be manual or took many lines of code of VB script or lots of Bash code or um, things that we couldn't do back in the day. So AI takes that, I think, to the next level. Well, and then we'll see. So just as a note, I like putting up this chart. This is showing you how long it took to reach 100 million users. ChatGPT reached 100 million users in 2 months. And that's why all of a sudden it seems like exploded on the scene. In comparison, TikTok took 9 months. That was an amazing thing at the time. Instagram before that, Pinterest, Uber, 30, 40, 70, 80 months for Google Translate. That's the speed at which this thing caught on fire. That was ChatGPT in 2022, I believe, or was it? Yeah, 2022. And since then, it's been an ongoing, amazing experience of the user experiences, the development integration, the different products that you can involve with, which I'm not going to fully talk about. But I think at the last Microsoft conference, which I can't remember now, what was the recent one, Microsoft announced like 100 new integrations with AI and generative AI, M365, Copilot chat, all kinds of different things. So the big tech companies are betting heavily. They're going all in on this stuff. And that's not even talking about what Amazon, Meta, and Google are doing. Plus, open source is on fire with everybody building their own open source models as well, which are amazing and very capable. And the big tech companies are listening to what's going on there and integrating concepts as well. So if you want to play along, install the module. Install PowerShell AI Assistant. If you don't want to play along, install it anyway. You'll be able to do this afterwards. Grab the video when it gets posted. Simple instructions to get an OpenAI key, and you set it in the $ENV. And if you pop over to the PowerShell AI Assistant, I have how-to videos. You could get to my channel, see what's going on. And to sum things up, ChatGPT is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So sometimes you type things in. Sometimes, today is Thursday. So typically I find that they release new modules or updates to GPT and to Azure. And like on Thursday night, Friday morning. So real-time demos are sometimes questionable. I have stood up stuff on Azure. There's an OpenAI service, and you have to submit paperwork and all kinds of stuff of what you're going to do with it. Microsoft gives you the thumbs up, then you can actually deploy your own service, and that's a little more stable because the models are older compared to what we're going to see today. I'm going to go straight against OpenAI GPT REST interfaces, and those models are constantly in flux in the sense that we're always seeing the latest, greatest, newest, coolest things. OpenAI, you can stand up what you want, and you can have a reasonably assured, okay, I know this model responds to prompts this way. Like I said before, ChatGPT hallucinates, it confabulates. Ultimately, you are responsible for what you use in production with this tool. This is not a silver bullet. This is not some kind of magical thing that you walk up and ask some questions to, and it's going to give you the answers to what you want. This is not Star Trek. It's not we're not on the holodeck where we're saying, hey, I want to play in some Shakespearean play, and everything happens and it's good to go. That's not what this is. I have stopped using things like Stack Overflow and Google. I make it a habit to go to GPT first to ask my questions, and if I can't get things answered, I do something else. All right. So enough slides. And what I figured I'd start with is people
just before you start, I want to know your opinion. So I saw a tweet. I saw a tweet when I think the GA of Copilot for Security went live. I think Copilot for Security, I think last week went GA, I think.
Yep.
Or so. And I saw a tweet about people complaining, because the price is some kind of high.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw a subtweet from someone, okay, but if you do the math, buy a security guy or hire a security guy, you do the math on the monthly pricing times 12, then it's nearly the same as if you hire a security guy, or even lower than hiring a security guy. I think it's reasonable, the pricing that Microsoft have that Microsoft is doing at the moment, at least for the security Copilot. What's your opinion on this one?
That's a good question, and that's going to be very subjective. What the value that you get. Again, it's not a silver bullet. So when you walk up to the tool, you may be spending a lot of money, and it may take you a month, 2 months, 3 months to understand prompt engineering and to get a real sense of an intuitive feel for how this tool can help you. So you may be spending a bunch of money, and it might take you a while to ramp up to get the full use of it. I call this the innovation tax, and we're in that time where we have to pay if we want to learn. I personally believe AI is here to stay. It's going to disrupt. And Microsoft, you can see from something like GitHub Copilot, it's absolutely amazing tool. And they've learned. So GitHub Copilot in the Visual Studio Code, it's the flagship product. And every other Copilot in Microsoft takes their direction from the VS Code integration of how they've done it. So the security one, it's got a lot of special magic sauce to it, as does the GitHub Copilot stuff. So it's expensive, but it's worth paying for a few months. I don't know if the security one, do you have to buy, I don't know, I don't pay attention to all the license stuff. Do you have to buy like a year's worth, or can you buy 2 months? Is it a monthly payment and then you can cancel anytime?
I think it's a monthly, so you can just I can check if I see a pricing. I look and you can talk further.
Okay.
And I
look
it up.
I think there's a bunch of tools that I use. Like I subscribe to a lot of different. Early on, it was a pay-as-you-go, or it was a monthly fee, like $20 a month for ChatGPT, the version 4. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'll use it for 2 months. There are a bunch of tools like to do copywriting, sales writing. There are tools out there in companies where you can actually write your script, and they generate the avatar to speak your script, and they do the lip syncing and all that stuff. Very expensive tool. And I was like, well, I'm going to buy 2 months worth. I'll stay on the system for 2 months because I want to see what they're doing. I want to see how they're doing. So, it was like $60 a month. And I did that for 2 months just to see what it was about. And then I canceled the subscription. And so I think, it's worth putting your toes in, especially if it's a month to month. If you did ChatGPT Web, you're out $20. I think it's worthwhile, the investment.
Yeah, so I found the pricing. They say, okay, they calculate in security compute units, so SCU, and one SCU provisioned costs about €3.69.
Okay.
So they estimate
like €4.
€4, and they estimate a price per compute unit about 2,000. So it's an hour price, and they estimate around €2,700 per month. And also they're writing Microsoft recommend provisioning 3 SCUs. So you have to do it times 3, so it's about €7,000 a month. If you do the math with times 12, yeah. That's
So that one I would never buy.
Yeah.
So that's up to you. But if you get your company to do it, and then you can do a focused couple of months on it, 15 grand. I suspect the challenge, I think, I suspect it's, I know Rod Trent and whatnot, I've watched him talk about this. I saw him speak at the Microsoft AI tour. I was there. I was proctoring the workshop, 3 workshops for that day on open AI models. But he spoke. They've done a lot of great, amazing things for that product. So it's probably not a personal expense you would do.
But that's the thing. If you run it 24/7, so you can scale it up and scale it down to your liking. So that's
So if you do it, like if you turn it on for an hour and off, it only costs you $1, maybe. End of day, if you're gonna wait, if you think you're gonna outrun the technology and think like, oh, it's a fad, it's gonna be, I don't need to learn it now, I'll wait 6 months. This stuff, the challenge is it's changing really quickly, but there are fundamentals that are staying in place, so you can look at new things and go, oh, I understand what they're doing here. You need to get yourself exposed to how all these different tools are working. With the security, I don't know much about the security pieces, like what those folks do, but I know at the bottom line is I know how to do prompt engineering. So I can walk up to that tool and I can actually start asking questions. And I know that the answers that come out may not be right. And then I can further work with the, the models and whatnot. And so that's where you really need to be. Cool. Good question. I like it. So I figured what I first start with, is I want to go into ChatGPT for folks. I don't know how many people on here have worked with this. So this is ChatGPT Web, and I pay the $20, as I said, and I can get access to GPT-4, which is a better model because it's been trained more deeply, and it has other tools that you can access. GPT-3.5 is good for everyday tasks, and but if you work with the GPT-3.5 and you don't get the kind of experience that you like, at the end of the day, you got to remember that's the free version. So try not to make decisions based on that, but just to get a sense of how this thing works. So what I wanted to do is just kind of quickly go through this and say, all right, what can you tell me about elephants? So again, this is a PhD intern that's read everything on the planet, and I'm just going to talk to it. It knows a whole bunch of things about elephants, right? The species, the habitat, diet, cultural significance, all kinds of stuff. And then I can start saying, now I'm in a conversation with a model, which means that it's going to remember, and I put that in air quotes, it has a memory and it knows what the conversation is, so it can keep the context of the conversation. So it knows I'm talking about elephants, and now I can ask it, can an elephant pull my tundra, right? And it will, says an elephant's strength is indeed impressive. Tundras are typically heavy vehicles. So it already knows that I'm talking about, it talks a little bit about the terrain, like it can't, what the tundra, one meaning is that it's a particular area of the planet, but tundras also relate to vehicles. So all of a sudden it's starting to have what it looks like is it inferring, is it rationalizing, or is it thinking? Again, that's a good philosophical discussion over beers, but this is what I'm demonstrating here is that you can start with a topic and then you can begin to have a deeper conversation. Now, here's where people start, when it first came out, this is what really annoyed people. I'm going to show this prompt next. And it annoyed people, and people just kind of walked back and said, oh, this is a useless tool. So I'm going to say, what are the January 2024 job numbers? And it'll see, then it comes back with a message, oh, I was updated in 2022. I don't have access to real-time data. And then people go, this thing's crap, right? If I went to GPT-4, see, it says browsing here, right? That's one of the tools. So it has a Bing browser, which I think they might be changing to a specific OpenAI browser that they're working on. But if I went to that, what would happen is it would give you a different response because it'd be able to search the internet. So I'm going to move over to another tool, which is really slick. And I apologize because I cannot find the chat window, but because I would paste this link in there. So this tool is free. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. That's too bad.
I don't know why I can't find it. I had it last time. Oh, well, whatever. So if you want to take a snapshot of that screen, this is a free tool. I don't know if you have to log in or how to do it. I'm logged in everywhere to Microsoft. So anyway, so this is Microsoft actually delivered last year. They started with Microsoft Edge had ChatGPT integrated with it, so it could do both web searching and more. And of course, we have a Copilot now on Windows 11, et cetera, et cetera. So they came out with this, which is kind of like a lightweight version, and anybody can get to it. So now I'm going to type in that same question. What are the January 2024 job numbers? Now, because this is hooked up to Bing Chat, instead of telling me that its date is of its training date, so you see this is the oh, there we go. So it's a little slow today. So maybe they're pushing out some new capabilities. It's actually searching the internet, and now it comes back and starts to tell me about the job numbers, right? So this is kind of where we're going. Google has this. They're integrating their search engine with Gemini, so that now not only are you getting the trained AI, and you're getting what it's been trained on, everything written by humans for the since humans were able to write, as well as reading billions of lines of code and billions of lines of everything else, but you're also getting some real-time information. And if we go over to talk about the X platform and Elon Musk, whatever your feelings may be towards him, he got OpenAI started. He invested the first $100 million to get that company off the ground. He has now created a company called X.AI, and he has something called Grok, and it has the same conceptualizations. You have a REST API. He's integrating it into the X platform. It has real-time access to search engines on the web and a deeper integration to all the data in the X platform, for better or worse. So anyway, so now you see, I moved over. This is using the same GPT-4 engine, right, that I would do. But now it has the capability of doing searches, and the results that it comes back, you can see I can now hover over a particular link, and I can get, if I want, I can actually go click on that. I can come down to this one, and that's Biden's numbers. And then here's another one from a town hall. And on the bottom, I have a whole bunch of things I can click. Now, you might be thinking like, well, I thought this was a discussion about PowerShell integration. So what I'm showing here is that depending on which user interface you go to, whether it's the web or Microsoft or the Gemini, the models, while they're AI, they're going to have certain limitations. Some don't have connections to real-time data. Some do. Some have more. And the models have been trained, earlier, later, whatever. So you have to keep that a little bit in mind in terms of, well, what am I working against? And when I show you the PowerShell stuff, I'll be going against the 3.5 model initially, but there's ways you can simply override that at the command line for which model you want, which may be a little more expensive, whatnot. But the PowerShell stuff does not, because we're doing a REST API, doesn't have access to tools like web searches, but it has access to other tools. Anyway, so that's one thing you can do. Now, here, right, so if we'll create a new topic. If I wanted to, I could say, show me, I need a greet function in PowerShell. And I'm going to leave the misspelling for PowerShell. So it not only corrects my spelling and my grammar, so it better understands and takes guesses at what I'm asking, and then it will actually then try to answer the question. And sure, here's a PowerShell function. So that's, I think, pretty cool. So not only does it show me the function, I can copy it. It shows the colorization, so it's actually syntax highlighting, maybe not correctly. And it also shows me how I can call it, which is not exactly how, that's not how we know to use PowerShell, but we're good enough. So asking it questions about programming, so I can stay in the same window, I could say I need a greet function in Python. Right, so that's a cool little Python.
And you also can correct it, so you can say, okay, this is not what I want. Please write it this way, and then say, okay, sure, I did it wrong. Here's the right thing, and so on. So you could write, okay, it's not using verb noun syntax. Could you rewrite it in verb noun syntax and so on? So that's
Great point, Constantine. So here I did that again, and let's see if I can say use verb hyphen noun for the function. And let's see what it does. So now it should be remembering my conversation from not just because I have the first line there. And let's see if it, and now using the Copilot notebook is different than some of the other tune pieces, but it tells me about the best practice. Don't know why I didn't do it. And there we go. We have a send greeting. So this is not like doing a search engine search, right? We would go up and hey, how would I write this? You're actually having a conversation, and dare I say, you're not communicating to just a piece of software. You think about it as communicating with a person.
But I don't think that the engine will evaluate your writing. So you can say PowerShell uses noun.verb, and they say, okay, yeah, I will do it with noun.verb. So I don't think it evaluates the if you're telling the truth. So
absolutely. Yeah. But it will look up the verb noun, and it will take from its knowledge base, so to speak, or its training that, oh, that's correct. Now, if I said use noun verb, I've not tried that. So I'm not going to try and make this go off the rails because you can. And then this might actually hallucinate. This might actually show one of the hallucinations, and it might come up with something like greet hyphen send.
Yeah.
So now it says, yeah.
Greeting send, yes.
Yep. So if you don't, but that comes back to you have to learn how to prompt, right? This is not a magic bullet, right? If you tell it something wacky, this is not the fault of the AI, right? It's gonna follow what you say. So this is not like programming like $A equals 1, $A plus plus, and then when you print it out, it's going to be 2. That's not what this is.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you said. Can talk about it for days with a beer, because this can also be some kind of dangerous or so. So if you can say,
thoroughly
okay,
dangerous.
write me something about blah blah, and then you can produce some, it's say fake news about something. Then,
absolutely.
That's not evaluable anymore.
Absolutely. And you know what? Why couldn't I can actually tell it? I could sit here, which we're not going to demonstrate. I could say, I want to come up with my own programming language, right? Call it whatever. And I can say, instead of doing parameter passing, like send greeting, I could say the parameters come first, and then comes the function name, right? And that's how I want. And then it would actually sit here and try to build that. And I could ask it to try to build an emulator on its side, and it would make it work. And then I could publish that and say, hey, I've created a new thing that works, and it could all be nonsense. So yeah, this is but it goes back to, if you look at it as a tool, right? Like, would I put this in production? I would have to put a lot of guardrails around how I would use this. But would I put it into production to do certain kinds of calculations? Probably not. Or I would know I have a lot of work to do to make sure that it's going to do the right thing. Or would I use it to do other things that make my life really simple, which we're going to take a look at. So with this tool, though, I wanted to just show a couple of things, and we can do it at the work with the PowerShell piece. So I can ask first 5 presidents, VP, and terms. So I'm looking for the vice president. So I'm really doing a minimal prompt, right? So you never know what you get with minimal prompts. So notice it spelled out the words VP. It knew I was talking about vice presidents. And what's cool is it comes back and it says, right? And again, always check your results. I wouldn't copy paste this into a document and send it to somebody. I would just double check, make sure that everything looks correct. Let it finish responding. And that's what's cool about this tool, right? Not only did I get information, but it also starts bringing down images, which is kind of cool. Now, here's the next piece I want to show is a prompt engineering technique. So you can actually put a prompt in. If you're having a conversation, in this case, I can actually type it here, but typically your prompt disappears. But I'm going to say as a table. And let's see what happens. So I'm asking the same question, and I've just appended as a table, and we'll see what comes back from the model and see how things go. So it goes off after the same information, but now I'm saying, notice it's starting to do it in Markdown. That's a Markdown table, and then it knows it's doing in Markdown, so it renders it. right? So now it's rendering that data. So if you know how to do prompting and if you know how to start doing things with models, these are some of the techniques you can do. So it takes a little longer to render it. So initially, so you could think about prompting that they're little programs, and then you're programming the model. So things like as a table, these are little tips. These are things you can begin to learn about with prompting to go, oh, I can get the model to do X, Y, and Z. And if you're in a conversational process, whether you're in Copilot or you're in the security Copilot, these are things you can, well, maybe it's not as a table. Maybe I want you to take on a different persona. Maybe I want to give you a different kind of constraints, things like that. So what's really cool about this particular tool, and this works in ChatGPT 4, but this has some more embellishments. I can sit here and I can say copy, right? And let me see if I have a.
So just to summarize it, so the prompt is, if I understand it correctly, the prompt is that thing that you type in to ask the engine something, and then you have to learn some kind of, let's say, vocabulary to make the engine behave a certain way.
Exactly.
Is it right? Okay.
That is correct. And the only thing I would adjust on that, and the reason I would adjust it is because this is the way it gets talked about in the papers that are written on this, and this is the way it's not. It is vocabulary, but it's also we're learning how to do prompting, right? So how can I prompt it, right? So I can give it. I can start with a prompt, and I can continue to add to the prompt, and that's good.
I think it started to learn the prompting if you use, for example, Power BI in the cloud. You can also do. You can also say, okay, I want from this file, let's give me something of this as chart or as table or as something or
exactly correct.
Search through a data set and render it a certain kind of way.
And you could think of it. You could think of it as even in PowerShell, right? So if you say dir, pipe it to select, right? You're projecting a different, like, I don't want to see the name in this. I want to see these other attributes about the files.
Yeah.
And by piping it to select, you're doing it at the end. And that's the same concepts here. So PowerShell 2 was ahead of its time. So
like always.
Totally. And it's so underrated. But anyway, so I just did the copy here from the notebook tool, and that's what it looks like. And if I change this to a markdown, it did. So it recognized it as markdown. So I'm in Visual Studio Code, and I can actually render it, right? So I use this tool all the time, and I'll show you how I do it from the command line, because I might want to get a bunch of information that I'm going to include in my help or putting something up in a repo, or I'm going to set up a markdown document that I'm going to translate into other formats. And I can sit there and ask all kinds of information from my model. I don't want to look this up. And I can kind of scan it and go, oh, that looks pretty much correct. But what else is cool here is that it has an export capability. If I wanted to export it to Word or PDF or to a text file, they have that enabled for you. The other cool thing here, well, we'll continue, is you can share this. So if I wanted to, I can copy and paste this link into the chat, and then it would save what I'm doing. You could then click on the link, see the results that I got, and then continue the conversation. Or you and I could get on a Zoom call or a Teams call, and we could talk about what's going on. And you could further prompt it, and I could further prompt it, and we'd have our own copies and further work on what was going on. So that's a super amazing collaborative capability. Now, the last piece I wanted to show is you can see up here, it goes edit in Excel, right? So once you get your data into the right format, and in here, I could continue having the conversation with the model, continue prompting and say, oh, you know what? I want to know what party was it in, what state was where was this person from? All kinds of different things I can continue to ask, and it would continue to come back in a table, set up different columns. And then when I get to the final result, you can then say, click the edit in Excel, and it takes you up to OneDrive, and it exports it to Excel ready to go. Right? So that's I use this a lot. I like this technique. I don't necessarily put it up here. I'm going to show you a different way that I do it. But this whole flow of talking to the model, getting information that I want, when I get it to a certain point, I'll say maybe as a table or as a markdown table or even other different other formats that I want to use. And then I can then take that information and then bring it into different tools to get what I want done. So now finally, let's get to some PowerShell and see what that's all about.
Are you also able to produce DALL-E pictures with it, or do you have to pay for DALL-E extra?
This actually uses DALL-E. So good question. Yep, this here. We'll do a new one. Pick with, I think this one does DALL-E, but I know GPT-4, if you pay the $20, you get the DALL-E integration. Pick of a cat with a hat. Let's see if it does it. So that's one of the challenges with all the different things. The models are all similar, but the user experiences, what's free and what can it do, remembering those pieces is more of a challenge. And then depending on if you're using Anthropic or Gemini from Google, it may or may not have that capability. So it tries to create it. It might take a bit. We'll let that cook. I think it's going to do it. So demos are going fairly well today. That means when I start doing the PowerShell stuff, it won't. So let's get that out of there, and we'll take a look at this. Yeah. Did it make the image yet? It's slow today. Yeah, it didn't do it. So notice it didn't.
Yeah.
So just to make it complete. So for $20 a month, I'm going to go to 4.0 and I'm going to paste. So now that was the Microsoft version. They onboard all of the new ChatGPT stuff. They're typically at least a couple of months behind what ChatGPT is doing. The preview here for $20, you get the latest, greatest, all the good stuff. So you might get better answers here. So here you can see that's DALL-E 3 doing its thing. And also you're in a conversation here, and I can say, make it futuristic. So, and then you can generate those kind of images.
Yeah, because we seeing, I think, nearly every day Heiko Brenn. I think he was also on your meetup. He's generating that on the every day he creates a new one. Yeah.
Yep, and the birthdays. Yeah, and he's really tapped in pretty well into the DALL-E stuff. So there you go. So there's a futuristic cat that it thinks. He's really good at it because I see his stuff all the time, and I do the DALL-E as well, and I can tell when he generates it. But his prompts, he's good at prompt engineering when it comes to the DALL-E. It's really good, as well as other things. And I don't know how he does it. And he goes, "Oh, Doug, it's easy." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. why don't you show me?" So cool. So so that's DALL-E. So it's not in the notebook. So some places you have to pay for it, but I think in Bing Chat on Edge, it is free, and you can get the DALL-E engine. You can get to the DALL-E engine if you want to get to the pictures. So let's take a look at what are we going to do here? Yeah. So here we are at the command line. So I can I can get the module, and there's PowerShell Assistant. Go ahead.
No, just go.
All good.
Go ahead.
Okay. And I can do, so in the PowerShell Assistant, whole bunch of stuff. We'll talk about a bunch of these pieces. And one of the key things is I have something called AI, right? And I've aliased that to one of the invoked chats. So you can come in, once you have that installed, once you set up your $env OpenAI key, right? You can set that variable, and then everything will work. If you download it the first time and you just go ahead and type it and press enter, it'll tell you don't have a key set, and it gives you a link where you can go pay for your key and do your thing.
So just for the video, $env is set an environment variable, which is called OpenAI key, and assign it a value, and then you can use the module.
Yep, you assign that a variable. I have instructions on the repo how to do that, and if it's not set, it will actually it'll actually prompt you, and it's not too difficult to set up. Okay, so now let's go back to see what we were doing. So how can we prompt this? Let's try and do that again. So now I'm taking that same exact prompt that I did in the notebook, and now I'm doing it the command line and get the first 5 presidents. Okay, so it basically comes back with the same information. Now I'm going against OpenAI GPT 3.5. So that was what we saw. That's similar to what was in the PowerShell notebook. I'm sorry, the Microsoft notebook that we looked at. You can change the model. Control spacebar gives you the which models you can choose from. If you want to go through GPT-4, that's going to cost a little extra. And all these things are like pennies on the dollar, if that many. This first query that I just did probably cost me 0.0001 cent to do. So now we're going to use our prompting engineering capability, and I'm going to say as a table, right? And
are these vocabulary? So this prompt engineering vocabulary. Can you do?
That's a tough word. Go ahead.
Yeah. Is there some kind of a cheat sheet what we can use on prompt engineering, or
nope.
Not? Okay.
So that's one of the challenges with prompt engineering. And these folks have done the best of how to get so if you go to learningprompt.org, learnprompting.org.
I will paste it in the chat for the.
Yep, these guys were the first ones out. They have one of the best ones but as you can see, there's just tons and tons of advanced prompt engineering. It's, I'm going to throw this one out here too. A lot of folks that work in the whole AI space, early on when I was doing this like a year, 2 years ago, they said, toss out the mathematics that you know, toss out the computer science that you know. This is all about prose and rhetoric, right? So this is learning how to use language, and you don't have to prompt it in English. It's tuned better on English, but you can use different languages. Not every language is supported, but it's learning how to use language. It's not learning how to use syntax like we do in programming. And this is going to be around for a long time. So it's really just experimenting with stuff. So good point. So let's so now what I'm going to do, so now you see I said give me the same prompt, and then I said as a table, and we can see the table there, and I'm just going to do I'm at PowerShell, so I can now do things like I can store this in a variable. I'm going to run it again so I can just use the output for a couple of examples, and I don't have to keep hitting AI. And every time I hit AI, it charges me money. Okay, so now I have $R, and I have something on my system called Glow, which is a Go function, and it renders markdown tables. So now you can see I don't get that spaced stuff. And I can also do things like, well, let's pipe it into code, right? That's how you can pipe from the standard in. And that just took that output and piped it in for me. And we have to change that to markdown, and then we can view it. So again, this is how I start using PowerShell and the different tools I have that I'm comfortable with, right? I can start doing things like, let's do this instead. So that's one way that you can work with it. Let's go to this example. I'm going to change it to this directory. Okay, so I have one set up. So folks, hopefully you know how to use Git a little bit. So I can do a Git status in this, and I have 3 files that haven't gotten checked in. So what's cool about the AI function, I can take that same Git status. AI lets you pipe things into it. I've enabled it with the value from pipeline, and I'm going to give it a prompt. So what it does is it takes this text that I just here, right? So I'm going to rerun it, but it takes all that text, pipes it into the AI function, and then I'm giving it a prompt of write me a detailed commit message for these changes. Now that's a prompt, right? You're not going to, there's no rules or regulations. You don't have to use write me a detailed. You can use your own phraseology to get the same kind of results. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. You might come up with a better one than I did. That's why we're all sharing prompts at this point. So now when I do that, it's actually taking that Git status, piping it into AI, puts that prompt, sends it up to AI, and now AI just created a nice little message. This is I would
Peter
use.
Also added something to the chat. He is suggesting anthropic.com because there is a prompt library available here.
Exactly.
Where you can I think see some some well-known prompts or so?
Well, yes. So here is Anthropic. So I want to grab that URI. And is it, Peter, is it over here on the left?
It's off the top of the page. It was the third one across.
There we go. So
library, yes. Yeah, right.
So here's a prompt library, and they've named them things like, here's an Excel formula expert. Love it. So here's an actual prompt, right? As an Excel expert, right? So you'd copy this entire thing, and you could use it straight through Anthropic, or I can come back over here to ChatGPT, and I can just paste that in, and that's a prompt, right? And now it's reading my prompt. It's going to come back and tell me some stuff. We'll get to that. And then here's the question you might have. We'll get to that in a second. And so ChatGPT read my prompt, says, great, please describe the calculation or manipulation you'd like to perform in Excel and provide relevant details. And you can see how it's slowly typing out. So that means to me, they're pushing out new changes. There's a lot of usage going on, even though they're on huge Azure pieces. All right, come on. There we go. So now I'm going to paste in, okay, I have a table. Yep, awesome. So here comes, this is doing live demos with GPT. So I have a table with sales data. Now, again, if you had all this set up on Azure, you'd have your own access to it in Azure on your own tenant, and you have enterprise level capabilities. This is what you get for $20. Anyway, so I have a table with sales data. Sales name is in column A, product in B, the sales amount in C, and the date of the sale in D. I want to calculate the total sales. Can you help me with the Excel formula? Now, meanwhile, if I go back here, right, this is what Anthropic would come out with and their models, and showing how to do a sum product of all those good things. And so now ChatGPT is telling me it's going to use some ifs. And I'm not quite sure why it should not be this slow. But this is how you can start thinking about what these prompts do. If you go and go look at the prompt library, you get oh, I can ask it about a CSV converter, or I can talk about a prose polisher, if that's interesting to you. But don't be turned off by like, oh, prose polisher. I don't do anything in prose. But clicking on it and looking at it, you can go, oh, I can structure this thing this way. I can structure my prompts this way, and I can start getting different kinds of results. This is the learning the vocabulary. So it's not that you want to copy this exactly, but you can get a sense of like different ways that you can interact with these models. Adaptive, what's a good one? Here's a tweet tone detector, right? So you can type a tweet in or grab a tweet from X. If you have this as your prompt, and you can say, hey, tell me what this is. And it comes back and says, okay, tone is sarcastic and the sentiment is negative. So there you see ChatGPT still working. Not sure why it's as slow as it is today, but it comes up with some ifs. And this is the Excel format. I can copy this code, drop it into my Excel spreadsheet. So it gets really interesting what you can do. And I set this whole expert up in a couple lines of prose or rhetoric, and learning how this works and why it works, and go, oh, I can start putting a bunch of sentences together, and I can really steer the model into answering the questions I want to. And you can do this. So if I was here using AI, my this function, right, at the command line, add column C. Let's see what happens. So I'm completely off script. Thanks, Mr. Cook. I appreciate that. So check it out, right? So I just pasted that into AI at the command line, right? And off to the races we go. And it comes back and it shows. Not only does it give me the answer, or it gives me a suggestion to an answer, but it goes ahead and explains it. We'll take it up one notch. And I can say, just the formula, and I'm going to keep formula. I don't care if I just spelled it. no explanation. And let's see what we get here. Now maybe we'll see smaller output, and there it is. So just the formula, no explanation. And I misspelled formula, so I corrected my spelling and figured out what I wanted. So rather than getting all that information back, right, this is showing like how I can start doing, take that, copy, paste, no extra noise around it. This does not 100% work. It works differently across models. GPT-4 is best so far at it. But this begins to show you how you can start learning prompt engineering. And if it doesn't come back with the information correctly, if it gives you more verbiage, you can come in here and expand your prompt and say, don't talk to me about this, just give me the answer. And you can just kind of beat the model into submission, so to speak. Okay, so cool. Moving on. Let's see what else we can do. Yeah, so we talked about elephants. You can see how you can have a conversation. You can see that the GPT website has one interface that you can do things with. You can get that for free today. So, and you don't even need a sign up, which is right. So you can actually go to chatgpt, I believe, .com, openai.com. And I don't think you have to sign up, and you get this out of the box ready to go. So you can start playing with it for free, seeing what it's about. Again, don't make decisions based on this. You get a lot of cool things, but remember, there's a GPT-4 with a bunch of tools and whatnot. All right, so we're at 2 o'clock. Let's take a look at a couple of more things, because I can't stay till 3, unfortunately, today.
Yeah.
So let's run this up. So you can do things like this. So now what I'm going to show here is I'm inside of a what they call a polyglot interactive notebook. I love doing demonstrations in this. It's got lots of capabilities. Polyglot interactive notebooks takes its cue from Jupyter notebooks. Jupyter notebooks are all based in Python. And Microsoft said, hey, what if we wrote a similar, the exact same concept, but let's have enable it so it can work with .NET languages like F# and C# and PowerShell. And sure enough, they did. And the other cool thing that it does is you can actually do it. You can do things like JavaScript, KQL in here, Mermaid syntax, SQL, which I won't show you, but I highly encourage people to go and play with this. Now, what's cool about it, you can think about each cell here is as if I'm at the console and I'm typing this in, and that every cell here is in one big console. But when I run it, right, it'll execute the code. It'll execute what's in there. If it creates variables, those variables will be available to each cell. Like I'll use this over here next, but it also keeps the results. Now, so I just set up this little thing here, said $code is equal to print hello world, right? And I'm gonna say convert to PowerShell $code. So I'm just putting that, using string interpolation inside of PowerShell. Let's run that up. And you also get to see how long it takes. So it took the print hello world and it says, oh, that's how you do it in PowerShell, right output, okay? Let's keep going. What if I wanted to convert that to Rust? So I could take the same exact code, and that's how you do it in Rust. Now, just for fun, I'm going to create my prompt. I'm going to say convert to open curly, 0, close curly, just the code, no usage or explanation needed, that code. So I'm going to give it an array. I'm going to take an array, PowerShell, Rust, and Go, do a for each, and I'm going to use the string -f formatter, and I'm going to plunk in the word PowerShell, Rust, and Go into this prompt, and let's see what we get.
So with this F, you can replace everything that's in square bracket. The 0 will be replaced with PowerShell, Rust, and Go, just for example.
Exactly. And so now by doing that, I get a PowerShell snippet, a Rust snippet, and a Go snippet. So you may not care about Rust or Go or whatever, but this is why I like PowerShell. This is why I like writing. One of the reasons why I ported the Python SDK that works with the REST APIs from OpenAI. I ported it to PowerShell because I love to plug stuff into PowerShell because it just lights up. Now I have all the things that I understand, or like I like in PowerShell, like creating lists and doing -f and text interpolations and more and more and more. And now I've just integrated AI into PowerShell, and now hopefully it's beginning to plant some more seeds of like, wow, what can I do with this thing? So let's take a look at another example. I know I see a lot of curl on the internet. Here's a simple one, right? I'm going to do a curl, I'm going to do a post, but I don't want to use curl. I want to use something in PowerShell because that's what, I'm not on Unix or Linux. So I'm going to run this up. My prompt is in here. It's in a here string. And oh man, that's super slick that this is the new model. Anyway, so I do an AI on the prompt. So convert from curl to PowerShell. Here's the curl, and check it out. It knew to use invoke rest method. It knew how to convert -x post into -method post. It knew how to grab the URI, and it's actually even spelling out the parameters. -h is headers, -d is the body, and it even knows to convert, take this format that would be used on a command line in Bash with the backslash quotes, and it knows how to better format that in PowerShell. That is, to me, super slick. Now we're going into a whole different realm. Like, oh, wow. So I do this a lot, right? I'll take stuff off the internet, or I'll take stuff that people send me. Maybe it's in a different language. And then if maybe I'm working in Python and I want to see how it looks in Go. So I'll use this technique over and over and over again. And it's not limited to just programming languages. You can say, hey, here's a sentence, and I want to convert it into Spanish, Italian, and German. I think you posted on Twitter, I'm going to use that name. You posted on X when you announced this meetup today, and you posted, I think, it in German. And I went in, I wrote my response to it in English, and I did AI convert what I wanted into German, and then I posted it. So if you're interested in doing such things, and we're not limited to just that. I can go from English to regex. Like I can say, write a regex matching a URL. Now, once again, you're responsible for what comes out. I'll leave the folks here to fact check whether that's correct or not. And if it uses something that you don't like, you can come in here and you can extend the prompt into, well, don't use this, use that. I want to see, a non-deterministic format. I want to see greedy, whatever you want to do. You're not limited. This is not a search engine request. You can have, this thing could be 5 paragraphs describing regexes. Now, let's check this out. Let's go another way. Let's say I have a bunch of phone numbers, right? And I'm going to ask AI, here's a bunch of numbers. Come up with something that can match all of those. I'll leave you to fact check that. But this is another way that you can use it. Now, you can also ask AI to explain stuff. So here's a function, greet, right? We saw that before. And now what I'm doing is in my prompt, I'm saying, explain this PowerShell code, right? And we click AI prompt. We click and it runs that, and it comes back and it says this PowerShell code defines a function greet that takes a parameter, $name, type string, so it knows how that this is a type. When the greet function is called, it will output the hello followed by a value, and it even gives me an example. If you were to call it with Alice, the function would output hello Alice. I see things on the social media and people go, hey, I've got this thing, how do I use it? Or I have a question. I will sit here and use my AI prompt, copy their exact question, ask AI, and then I copy paste what AI says back into the social media platform, and I'll say, you should use GPT. You don't need to go and wait for somebody to respond to you from someplace. You can begin to interact with GPT or AI to get these kind of what you want to do. Now, also, let's say, I'm going to just take this as an example. I'm going to put this in as a comment on the command line. Let's see if I can do better with quotes. Okay, so I just put that on that. So now that's in my history. That's the last thing. I have something called explain in the AI assistant module. You type explain, it looks at the last thing you did in your history, grabs that, sets up a prompt, and it sends it off to GPT, and it says this formula is not a valid PowerShell command. That is correct. It appears to be a structured formula, figures out that sum ifs a function within Excel. So this is how I use it. If I do a 1 divided by 0, right, in the other module, which I'm porting over, that I can look at the last error on there, but I can actually take this, and I think I have it explain text. Let's see if this is going to work. And I can say, well, what does that mean? right? Obviously, we all know what attempt to divide by zero is. This is just a demo, but you can come up with some very complicated pieces, and off it goes. And when you try to divide a number by zero in PowerShell, blah, 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 blah. And this works with any kind of error. People use this to look up CVEs. They look up stuff on Intune without actually going to Google or going to Stack Overflow or other websites. You can start interacting this way. And when it comes to that kind of static information that it's been trained on, you can have much more confidence that you're going to get back a good answer. So you can actually start using that kind of stuff in your PowerShell or programmatically to have it go out and look things up and give you back correct information. Now let's play around with some SQL. I don't know how many people do SQL here. So in the prompt, right? So if I was typing this in ChatGPT Web, you can, but I'll do this right here in PowerShell. For SQL, create a customer table with the following columns, no explanation, blah, 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 just a SQL code. Let's see what it comes back with. And we have a winner. And how awesome is that? It came back with a create table. Not only did it do that, but it guessed and said, oh, ID is probably an int and it's a primary key. Hey, I love it. Great guess. Notice it takes my first name that I sent in uppercase first, space, uppercase N name, but it comes back and it says, oh, we're going to make that a proper, proper name, column name for, maybe you don't want lowercase, but it put the underscore in and all kinds of stuff, does the proper typing on it, varchar 50, age, figures it's an integer, et cetera, et cetera. I use this, not specifically with SQL, but let it do the tedious type work for me to generate schemas, whatnot, so on and so forth. And you can use this. Give me an example of a bicep program. Give me an example of Terraform, or I want to be able to do things, with Azure CLI or PowerShell Azure module, and you're off to the races. Again, planting seeds. Use your imagination. What can you do with this? And you can go further with this. Here's the little thing. Okay. Deductive reasoning. So this is a challenge to you folks in the audience. I'm going to read this. I'm going to hit run, see who comes up with the answer faster, you or AI. So in the hockey game, Mitchell scored more points than William, but fewer points than Austin. Who scored the most points? Who scored the fewest points? Click run. And AI answers it in 3 seconds. Austin scored the most points and Mitchell scored the fewest points. So that's a typical here in the U.S. like a 10th grade question, or I think at least high school level, of where you start to figure out and do deductive reasoning, and you can see how fast and accurate it can do. What else do we have? We did that.
Just another question.
Yeah.
So I think this is out for a while. So the PowerShell team around Program Manager did this extension for PS readline called the predictor model.
Yep.
So are you aware that these predictors are trying to use also AI in the background, or is or do they come up with the model itself for themselves? Are they using ChatGPT or some kind of model in the background?
Good. And don't hold me to this, and I'll respond. So I did look at the predictor model when it first came out. They, the PowerShell team tapped me and said, "Hey, could you take a look at this?" And the predictor model is a how would you say? It's like a plug-in process. So they wrote a bunch of predictors, right? So they went over a known set of data. Like there's like the fact that you can do, help. Let me just use get metrics. If I do the help on the get metrics, right, you can program it. Thank you. Right. So I can programmatically get at all the different parameters, right? So I can do help get metrics dot parameters and whatnot. And then I can parse that. And then I can I can then write a predictor, because I can get to the different functions and the parameter sets inside of a function. And then I can surface that through a predictor, right? So that's what that was designed for. And yes, the next step is to be able to hook up AI. To my knowledge, nobody has done that. Justin Grote has done a whole bunch of stuff on that. Yeah. I think he just presented at the PS DevOps Conference Summit. He talked about the predictor stuff. I haven't gone down deep on that yet. I'm waiting for it to shake out and see where it goes, if that makes sense.
And there are also not so much predictors out there, I think. So,
Exactly.
Just for the audience, what the predictor model is. So you have the module PS readline that you use every day in PowerShell. So if you use PowerShell 5 or PowerShell 7 and above, and you have the PS readline model, it gives you the syntax highlighting inside of the console. And you can install some modules like the Azure Predictor module, for example. And you have to do a prediction view source PS readline setting to activate this. And if you then you have to do a history and model. I think
Exactly.
It's a PS readline option. And if you do this and you type something like new AZVM, it will give you some example how to create a new Azure VM, for example, or if you do new virtual networker, so it will give you some examples on how to start. So that's their approach on helping you speed up things. Yeah.
So not to speak out of turn, but I think one of the other challenges that, that's exactly what it does. And then you can build your own predictors to do these. To last I know, when it first came out, that you could only build the predictors in C#.
Right.
And I think Justin maybe came up with a couple of shims and ways to do it in PowerShell. I'm comfortable in C#, but I was like, I don't want to spend my time there right now. And as far as hooking it up to GPT, absolutely doable. The challenge is, who's going to pay for it, right? Is it free?
Right.
Is Microsoft PowerShell team going to pay for it, or Microsoft? So I think it's around those issues. But yeah, it's definitely a technology to look at because it brings some cool things to the table.
And they also implemented a command line, so a native command predictor, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So you can type, for example, dir, and then you can press Control space, or
like
if you
clip.
Yeah.
But I don't have it set up.
Yeah. So if you type this, it will show you all the parameters that is on the native command, and then so you have a better look of what you are using as a native command.
So I don't know if it works with Kubernetes, but like that would be like one of the places where you don't want to look up all the Kubernetes functions, right? The parameters. But I'm not sure if they have that enabled for that one, but maybe. But yeah, that's super helpful. But that's super helpful. Yeah, but that's not AI.
Yeah.
That's
a special approach, I think.
Right. That's the old style of programming, right? So they write programs to extract that information every time you run it, or what they do.
Yeah.
Cool. So I do have till 2:30. So let me show one last piece.
Yeah.
We'll do a couple more pieces and we'll go from there. So when I built the PowerShell AI module and assistant module, I wasn't sitting around on a weekend just like drinking beer, which I probably was, but I wasn't sitting there drinking beer going, hey, I'm just going to see if I can build my own AI module and figure out what happens. I didn't do that. So part of what's in the PowerShell AI module, I just have a thing that takes you straight to the reference documentation. And what this is, what they have is a REST API, and they have an SDK that they support. So OpenAI built a backend, and you get to it through standard REST calls, right? So over here you can even see you can even get at all these REST APIs through curl if you wanted to. And they have an SDK that they support for Python and for TypeScript, right? So they build as they make changes to the back end and the capability and upgrade the capabilities. They update their Python SDK and they update their TypeScript SDK. So back in 2022, when I first there was an older version than this. I was like, oh, this is all REST APIs, and I could use invoke REST method. Let me wrap it all up in PowerShell and see what happens. So I didn't invent a way to interact with it. This is one of the ways that they're democratizing AI to the rest of us, right? So if you want to write an application, you can go learn how all these different parameters are passed for creating assistants, listing them, deleting them, the same thing with threads and messages and runs. And so that's why I said, oh, I've got nothing to do, so let me wrap those puppies up. So if you do use the module, so what you can do is I'll create a new module here and we'll make it PowerShell. And the 4 primitives that are most interesting is I'm going to store it in a variable assistant equals new OAI assistant. Am I in a PowerShell? Yeah. Let's take that out for a second. Okay. So it's that simple to create an assistant, right? And what that does, you can think of new AI assistant when it talks to the REST API. It's creating like a resource group in Azure. So let's run this up, and then we'll see what's in assistant, right? And excellent, the REST APIs are working pretty quick. So I talked to the OpenAI servers, and my module's also configurable that you can work with Azure OpenAI as well. And it's very simple to switch between the both. So it created that, off it went, and we're golden. So now what I want to do, that's the first primitive. So that's just creating it. It's that simple. You have a bunch of different options, which we'll talk about in a minute, that you can do more things with it. The next thing you want to do is you want to create a thread. And you can think of a thread as how you create a chat, how you start enabling how to do a chat between, we'll run that up, between you or your program or your script and with ChatGPT. It's nothing at this point, there's nothing fantastic about it. Remember, all this stuff that you're seeing here, this is all OpenAI has this out. It's not general release yet, but Microsoft is bearing down hard on it. This is the future of how they're going to work. This stuff is, while it's beta, it is not, this stuff's not going to change in the sense that they're going to change the API. They're going to continue to add capabilities to what we're seeing. So I created an assistant. Now I just created a thread. So that's the second primitive. The third primitive is, once we have a thread, we want to put a message on there. So now notice this talks about uses all the proper verb nouns in PowerShell. So if you know how to do, news, removes, updates, and whatnot, I've tied it all into OAI stuff. So if you have a new assistant, new thread, new message, new run, delete these things, all that kind of stuff. So at least you can navigate around the function names and pretty much know what's going on. And here we're going to pass in for the message, we're going to do a thread ID. So we take the thread that we built, and let's see, we're going to do it this way. So .id, and for now, there's only one kind of role, which is user, which is you have to do, but don't worry about that. And right, we'll do content, and we'll say, what is the capital of France, right? And I'm going to just store that here for now, MSG, and I'll run that up, and we'll see what's in there. Now, so far, nothing's happened. Okay, so there's the message, right? If I wanted to drill down to notate into the content, I can see the message, what is the capital of France? And I see a whole bunch of cool things on here, like here's the message ID, the thread ID that we created. Now, if you want to get the model to respond, that's the fourth primitive, right? New, and it's a run. So we're going to actually run this, and it needs an assistant ID, and it needs a thread ID. You can see my GitHub Copilot is giving me things that it wants to suggest, and I'm just not accepting those at the moment. So now we're going to do a run. We'll save that in a variable, and I'll print that out. Let's run these 2 lines up. And in a run, you can see I started up. It took the assistant ID, it took the thread ID, knows, and then there's the run ID, and you can see it's queued. So this is exactly how ChatGPT works. It's using all the new stuff. It sits on top of these APIs. So in 1, 2, 3, 4 calls, I've created an assistant. I gave it a question, and now it's actually running. Couple of things to note that are really cool is that if I actually shut my machine down, went out for lunch, came back, I can come back and grab the thread ID that I sent up, right, that this is all running on, and I can get the information later on today. Or maybe I made a very complicated question, go figure this out, go look this up, go do this, and it may take a half hour to run. So all this stuff is running on the OpenAI servers, which they run on Azure. And again, they've ramped up all these modules, all these models, and this capability into Azure proper, so to speak, so that as if your company works with Azure, you have a proper tenant, and you have all the defenses, and you have all the custom controls, and you have all the protection that you would expect for your regular application. You now have the OpenAI models running in your instance, so you can control that it's up all the time, all kinds of things. And you can, when you run these types, and you can set up these types of applications, and you're actually hitting against your own private instance of the OpenAI ChatGPT stuff. So we ran that. Now, how do we get the message back? Now, I'm going to just create messages equal, what do you think? Get OAI message? Yeah, that sounds good. And what does it take? It needs to have a thread ID. Okay, and we'll print that out. And we'll run up these 2 lines of code. And that's what you get back for messages. Okay, so let's take a look at messages.data. And you can see down here, the role was user. Now it puts it in like a last in, first out type way, so that if you're having constant conversations and chatting with this model, the message that you got back from the assistant is always the first one on the top. And there's ways that you can order that whatever you want. So right now we're going to do a default. So that's our message, and then the assistant responded, right? That's the first message up top. So let's use good old PowerShell. We're going to notate into content. Oops, get that right. Right, and you can see. So now we can see what is the capital of France, and it responded. We can go into text and dot value, and even though it's last in, first out, I can change over here. Oops, not the new run. Sorry, on the get OAI message, I can say order. ASCII. So all these parameters I built in based on their SDK that I ported. So I didn't make this stuff up. We'll run this again, so the messages are in a correct or in an order that we'd expect. And oops, come on, there we go. There we go. And now I can see I've had a conversation with the model, right? What is the capital? The capital of France is Paris. Now, the reason I demo it this way, this is all you need, right? Now, you don't want to sit there and give a user a script like this. You have to do more things. Be able to pass it in parameters, get some things, do this whole looping capability, all this capabilities here. So I have abstractions that do all that for you, right? And it's called invoke simple question. And let me just make sure that I have my assistant. Oops. Yeah, okay. I don't know if this is available here. Yeah, so that's the assistant that I created before. And invoke, so you can create your assistant with a new OAI assistant, and we'll show you one more stuff you can do on it. And invoke simple question takes an assistant ID, and it takes a question. And we'll say, what is the capital of Italy? We'll go to Italy for now. And when I run it, it does a little bit more. It shows you what the question you asked, and there it is. So you don't have to go through what I did. This is just for like, if you want to build your own kind of custom chatbot, okay, you can begin to look at this and use it that way. Now, we'll kick it up one more notch. I also have something called invoke quick chat. So now, no, this is a once fire and forget, so to speak, right? I send a question up, I just get a response. Sometimes you want to do more than that, right? So here's quick chat, takes an assistant ID, and this time we're not going to pass a message. But what I'm going to also do is I'm going to say, here's the assistant. I'm going to make another assistant, and I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to say you're a geography tutor. We'll call it a geography assistant. Okay. So now I'm doing a little bit more in terms of what the assistant's, giving you some more, fleshing out some details. And I'm going to run this, and let's see what we get. So now notice on the bottom, I run it. It says, hello, I am grading great grammar, which I'm not good at. I am a geography assistant, type exit to exit. Super helpful. And I can say, what is the capital of Germany? So now, not only does it come back and give me an answer, and it looks correct, but I'm in a conversation now, and this is all, so I've made this abstraction, uses those same primitives, does a little bit of extra stuff so it can actually loop and keep prompting. What is the capital of Germany? And now I can say things like, let's type in just the word Sweden. Now, how about that for a minimal prompt? Now, the cool thing is because it's in an invoke quick chat and it's on a thread, it knows that it has memory of the conversation we're having on this thread, on this chat thread. It knows that I'm asking about capitals, and when I type in Sweden, it's good to go. Now, what if I type in something like, how about we type in, I'm going to go with the north, like Finland, and I wouldn't have to do the proper spelling. Let's go Finland, Austria, and Spain. So now I didn't program this, right? Imagine having to pull all that out, and I'm passing that up to the chat, to the model, and it comes back and tells me each one, right? Now, if I had to program that in PowerShell, that I could have this kind of interaction with a user, that's a heck of a lot of work. Now, hold on to your hats. And I remember I said before, like you could do these like as table and whatnot. So I'm going to say in JSON. Let's see what we get. And it comes back and took the entire conversation, knew I was talking about capitals, gave me the country and then capital, and it's all in a parsable JSON format. So I can even say something like markdown table. So that's pretty slick in my opinion. Any thoughts and questions as we begin to wrap up?
Any questions for Doug?
So this is going to be in the upcoming book that Bruce and I talk about, what we're going to write. This is going to be one of the chapters showing you how to do all this kind of stuff. So that's not bad for 2 lines of PowerShell, right? Now, of course, invoke quick chat sits on top of the primitives, and those primitives sits on top of the code I wrote to build the SDK. But that's one of the reasons why I built it, because I was like, this stuff is just too cool. And I need to be able to play with this at the command line. And again, other folks have ported the SDK to PHP, JavaScript, to Java, to .NET. So this is not, we're all out there saying this is a viable, amazing technology, and look at what you can do with it. And if you did take a look at the Invoke Quick Chat, not to downplay it as, it took a whole bunch of time to get a sense of what this thing can do. But if you really look at it, it's all it is basically looping, doing a read host, and then interacting with the AI back end. And this is just a simple example of what you can do with this thing, and which I'm not going to show today. We're putting our pinky toe into the kiddie pool. So I highly recommend installing. Maybe not install. Install PowerShell AI Assistant. I am going to rename it and put it out later this week, called PSAI, make it a lot easier. But definitely get involved with it. check out the free tools that I showed you earlier, right? You can get into ChatGPT 3.5. You can get into the notebook. Consider spending the $20 if you want to get into the security piece. If you're on M365, all this kind of technology, all the models and the way you interact with it, with the prompting, all work in all the co-pilots in the M365 for Excel, for PowerPoint, blah, 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 for your Outlook. So this is, and the same thing is going on for Google, and the same thing is coming out of Meta. Again, so if you start working with those models, not only can the prompting work out of the box, but believe it, they're all REST API. They have to follow what OpenAI is doing, which is democratizing it, and they have their own REST APIs into Gemini, REST APIs into the Llama models, and Anthropic Claude. And if you look at the documentation, it's like, oh, that's a REST API, invoke REST method. How do I do it, right? So I'm building out those models, that code from PowerShell to those different models so that we can begin to play with this in very, very cool ways. And to close, just as a teaser for the future, the next step with all this stuff is what we're going to call agent workflows. So you can think of an assistant as an agent, right? So this one was a geography agent, right, that we did here. And you can start thinking about how do you build multiple agents? How do you have agents talk to each other and work in concert to solve problems? That's where the industry is going. That's where the research is taking us. And this stuff is very robust, very capable. And again, there's a whole bunch of things we didn't talk about. Let's break this out. We didn't talk about instructions. We didn't talk about tools. We didn't talk about files. But that will be in the book. All right, I'm going to wrap up.
Yeah, just some closing words from me. So Brian, thank you for the feedback. He said very interesting session. So thank you for the very cool talk and the very much information. Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Just for you ask about some K8 predictor stuff, and Peter delivered. So there is a Cube help Anthropic Claude 3 Opus implementation of this. So you can ask it, for example, deploy hello world to the test namespace and expose it at so and so port, and he will give you the kubectl commands for
awesome
this.
And that's on Claude, right?
Yeah, right. So this is a GitHub repo. So if you just search for Cube help on GitHub, then you will find it.
So what we were talking about before. So that's really cool. And yep, building out these types. So there's no reason why you can't name it right here and say, this is a Kubernetes assistant. But so that's using AI. I was talking at that one point before about using Kubernetes with the predictors and the native predictors that the PowerShell team is coming up with. Yeah. So those two ways to get to the answer. One uses AI, one does not. When I'm not saying one's better. So awesome. So thanks for looking that up, Pete. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So Keith? Are there any other questions? Because I think Doug has to leave now or a couple of minutes.
If there's any questions, I can answer. If not, follow me on Twitter and on LinkedIn. I announce all the different things I'm doing, the talks, the work, the videos, the live streams, the podcasts that I do with other people. So and join in. Love to have you contribute. Love to have conversations. And if things don't make sense, ask away. Makes everybody better. So thanks, Konstantin. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Doug, for taking your time, and see you next month. And see you in another talk, or maybe at a PowerShell conference.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Talk to you later. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.